Yeah, this is the supreme leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, the prophet of our time, Nnamdi Kanu, and the holy city of David. Yeah. Accomplish the mission. Yes. We told you that we are coming and we are here. On a one year long, while I have food, all of my decade for the fun. So, take another thought. On our Madike Biafra, the Supreme Leader of the people of Biafra, on our state of Israel, never a willing war. On our book Kabiama, come as we go in Anqua. Yes, sir. I got my yes, I got your we are here. We are here. This is iPod. And this is all people of Biafra worldwide. Onye afọ na-ekwu okwu onye amụma ebe ahụ Nnamdi Kanu ebe dịka ndị Igbo niile ọya dị fa wee nụ dị na ọ ga-atọ na ntebụl obechere ọ ga-atọ na ọ ga-afị ọfụma wee nọ ndị die na-ebi na ibe dị ọkụ ya ajụ oyi you guys should say magnifique.
As you know, we've gotten a whole string of statements and stories on this from Riyadh and Washington, but the most consistent has come from Turkish sources who say there is video and audio evidence that Khashoggi was tortured, drugged, killed, and dismembered by a Saudi hit team, including a forensic expert with a bone saw. Now, even bearing in mind that Turkey and the people of Saudi Arabia have their very real differences, and Turkey has motives, obviously, of its own in all of this, their story has not changed. The Saudi story has, and the Trump administration appears to have shifted into something of a crisis. Even the president acknowledged today that Jamal Khashoggi is likely dead. With all that said, the breaking news tonight, our Nick Robertson joins us now from Istanbul with the very latest. So, reporting just how soon after Khashoggi's disappearance did Turkish officials likely know he was dead?
Within like 3.5 hours of him going into the consulate, his fiancee's outside, she gets worried, she calls a Turkish official close to President Erdogan. He calls around other officials, including the intelligence community. He also calls the Saudi ambassador in Ankara, who denies any knowledge of the situation. And by this time, it's about 6 p.m. in the afternoon. This is about little less than 5 hours after Khashoggi went into the consulate. The intelligence officials begin reviewing their recordings from inside the consulate. Recordings this is that the Turkish government has yet to publicly acknowledge exist. They begin reviewing those, and within an hour or so, they come to that conclusion that Khashoggi has been tortured, beaten, tortured, killed, and then dismembered. They immediately inform the police at the airport, saying that they fear that there's a possibility that Khashoggi could be abducted. The police at the airport say that this protest 7 Saudis who are waiting to get on a private charter jet to fly back to Riyadh, a private charter jet that had arrived in earlier in the morning. The police at the airport say they have already screened these 7 passengers and their bags and say that there's nothing in them to indicate they're trying to take out parts of Jamal Khashoggi's body. But they also send undercover intelligence operatives dressed as cleaners onto that waiting jet on the runway in Istanbul to check that out, and it comes up clean as well. However, earlier in the afternoon, another private jet chartered by Saudis, has already left that plane, to the best of our knowledge, didn't get checked. The timeline there is incredibly short. Within, Jamal Khashoggi goes into that consulate 1:14, and Biden's saying 6, 7 p.m. Turkish authorities that evening already know what's happened to them.
What can we say about where this information that you're talking about, this level of detail, where it actually comes from? Because in past days, we've heard things in the pro-government Turkish newspaper, and there have been other leaks. Where is this information coming from?
So we've pieced this together from multiple sources. We've taken, a lot of this information we've developed over a period of time, that we've seen it falling into a pattern where, a source was contacted by a source here in Turkey, known very well to him, who alerted him that first evening about what's happening. You piece it together from there. What's been put into the public domain that leaks into Turkish media? We've gone back to Turkish officials and looked at the police records as well. So this picture that I've just described to you has been built up by multiple Turkish official sources and looking at the police records of what the police, for example, were instructed to do at the airport and the other team going on the plane to check the plane. So this has taken a while to build up. But again, as you said at the very beginning, Anderson, the key to all of this is that Turkish narrative very quickly they knew details, and they knew those details because of the recordings that they haven't admitted publicly about from inside the consulate, and they stayed consistent, and we've been able to draw it out about sources here in detail over a period of time, Anderson.
Right, Turkish government newspaper had several days ago said it was an Apple Watch that was transmitting information to an iPhone that Khashoggi's fiance had outside. There's been questions raised about that, whether that in fact was, or whether listening devices or some sort of recording devices that the Turks had put inside the Saudi embassy. We don't know which is correct, but it's clear, and we've heard this from the beginning, that there does seem to be some sort of audio recording of what went on. Nick, I appreciate all the details that you were breaking tonight. Thank you. Shortly before this broke, President Trump made news this afternoon on his way out to Airport 1. He was asked point blank what happened to Khashoggi. He's dead.
Jamal Khashoggi is dead?
He's dead.
It certainly looks that way to me. It's very sad. It certainly looks that way.
Then another reporter asked what consequences Saudi Arabia should face if it's shown they were responsible.
Well, it'll have to be very severe. I mean, it's bad stuff. But we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Both things go beyond what the president has been willing to say up to this point. Keep in honest, though, it's really unclear right now how much credence to give these news statements, especially the part about severe consequences. I say that because nearly everything else the president and his people have been saying lately suggests that actually getting tough with the kingdom is the last thing it really wants. Instead, after days of killer, stressing Saudi Arabia's importance. Since he wasn't an American citizen, the administration now says it wants to give the Saudis more time.
The reason why we
So let me just repeat that.
discussing all this is because
to investigate a murder and possible dismemberment that he himself
I'm responsible for these Negroes, right?
may very well be involved
You
with.
know, I'm responsible for where people got stuff from, or why people do what they do, or
They made clear to me that they too
how they
understand
do what they do,
the disappearance of Mr.
or why they do what
Khashoggi.
they do.
They also assured
But
me
you have to
that they
understand
will
that,
conduct a complete, thorough investigation.
I'm responsible for a lot of these guys' careers, you know?
And the best report itself will be transparent for everyone to see, to ask questions about.
So,
And to inquire with respect to his thoroughness. And I told
think about what I did, what I
we
said,
ought to give them a
who I said it to.
to complete that.
Like, I didn't know a lot of it. I say I didn't know a lot of it. I didn't know nothing. I was just doing things things
Of a Saudi
So it does show us how that things manifest. It's why I was trying to keep manifesting more. Because people manifest it, don't even keep manifesting. Gates is a reception. So it's like one, so it's a problem.
Reveal yourself to me.
Oh my God.
Because you can understand that
the truth is a gospel.
scams
Jesus
that
Christ is the truth. The truth is not just a correct
Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
because a correct
Last night,
report may also be a lie.
he told us that
Because he's not even a class.
Just
He's a
correct.
full-fledged burglar, right?
own up to their responsibility.
So,
After that,
I mean, you gotta understand, I mean, that's a big of effort to the utmost, right?
were made during that time.
Jesus Christ came to the synagogue.
But again, like that,
Synagogue is a clear and
hard.
best representation of the Lord.
Left the
certain
consulate
things
He
to,
came to the synagogue
to go forward. If he doesn't hold me, like somebody like me, right? Like this, you know, like, you know, like, if I mean, that thing was a little funny, right? Right.
This woman has
But I knew he was like really funny, right? And he lied, I just watched him lie, that's too cool, you know? And this spot called a hopper, right? The story was on Wednesday night, right? You know, like lemonade, by the way, New Jersey.
to belong to a specific synagogue.
Actually,
Right in the synagogue,
I met him
everyone
around.
was walking in
You know,
the
difference
and
here, like,
knocking
in the
you right
first
now.
So,
Today, I will allow you
yeah,
to
I was
knock
going
him
down
back.
anyway.
I said, we're knocking back.
Church meetings, so
Hear this.
I got to go
The
to
woman
church.
who has found in the synagogue. Many people think that if you like the
That
synagogue,
was in
you
our
know,
old church for a long time. We remember we were like in the 70s.
the synagogue where you find the religion, the synagogue where Jesus is, and he's freely at work.
Yes, and we're pastor.
If it is just a case of love,
Yeah, I had a church.
and you
Or
keep
separate, I
them
heard.
you will die in church.
Baptist church and all.
That's why I tell you, all the church is a good church.
Tell me where I was, where I was made,
But the
right?
effect that is
What,
on the
you
church,
know,
that's
or
all it
brought
It
up.
has to be founded on the principles of the Lord, on the doctrine of truth. And if it is not founded on the principles of the Lord, founded in our Bible, it is not the church to go to. The word church is not
Either way,
it's not a ministry,
I
it's
mean,
the
it's
church.
not necessarily true when you expect information
That a top
about what's really going on.
Are you hearing? Now,
They
if
were
you are in
lying,
the
it's
church
off
that
the
is
guy.
not Bible based, you are in the wrong church altogether. So what do I say to you? Don't say back. Back and go.
Until
did not have anybody
the
to
truth
tell
is
you
manifested somehow, some way. But against
This woman was found in the synagogue for 18 years. The Bible says she was.
And two, how you know?
And the reason why she was banned for 18 years was because of an oppression, a demonic oppression. Somebody said demonic oppression. This woman was
Right? You just supposed to
many people come to church
decide
all around the world.
what you want to follow.
And like
And as you go on,
like this. The sin is like
they're
this.
going
They
forward.
run with the offering to the state
Backwards.
like this.
That's why it's
They are beaten by the devil so much so that they do not know if Jesus Christ really want them well now or just after death.
That's right.
They are so beaten that they have made peace with the condition. When they speak about the misery, they do not disassociate with it anymore. They talk about my problems. How many of you are good except of my problems? Because you see, the enemy has dealt with Satan, I'm angry against you, and I'm coming to get you. Satan, hear me. I am coming for you. My name is Aflukau. The time of mourning is over. The time of being beaten is over. The time of lying down is over. This is time for Jesus. This is time for the Lord. I want somebody to take up his weapon. Hey! I am angry. for you. Wherever you may be streaming from, I am coming for you. I will get you. I will bring shame to you. I will embarrass you. I will ridicule you. I am coming for you. You better run. I said, you better run. I will see. Here, this woman was dying. What a life to live! It seems like those who are dead are better off than those who are living. Because the entire life is summarized with one word: struggle. Struggle to live. Struggle to dress. Struggle to feed yourself. Struggle to go through the night. Struggle to see your children going nowhere. Hear me, today we break the backbone of struggle. I said today, we break the backbone of struggle. Who is with me? I said, who is with me? Today we break the backbone of struggle. In the name above every name, the name of Jesus. The Bible said the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into him, and they are saved. At the mention of his name, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. Yes, I have a sleep. Struggling every day.
So my dad would fight that. My dad would fight that to shut the cartoons.
Handling this, the idea
So
of
me and my dad will bring their stuff, bring their
property.
things like that.
If all of it's online,
Mobile
running this investigation,
yeah, no problem. I've seen the stepping.
It's
Real poor, you know, real good, like driving good, because it's right there, like, we go up to church on Sunday. So it's a real Sunday is quiet, and, you know, so I know it was like real good, real different, right, from where I was raised at, and I was like, wow, this is good. Old thing that is, candy.
going to have the
I was like, wow, you know,
but you see, the reason why you are not is because he's not in his what's standing. He is bent over. But after the Lord will stretch his back up, you will realize his full height. I am here to prophesy that the first will be the last, and the last will be the first. I try it again. I'm here to prophesy that the first will be the last, and the last will be the
when I met Cat, I was kind of like the version of still trying to figure stuff out. So when I see things that I was saying, because he kept saying himself not so stuff I learned useful. Like for regulation, I like that. But I already knew that, you know, I remember it was so, I mean, that right there, I was just snap on and there's true. I was already trying to come up with one so that people can pass on help you. But the thing is, because
you shall not depart from Jerusalem. Remain until you receive power. When the Holy Ghost will come up upon you, and you shall become
somebody
witnesses unto me.
you know,
Not just reporters, witnesses. You will have an encounter. You will see it and test it yourself. And then you will speak about things that you know about. Now I am up. I was forgotten. Now I am remembered. I was sold out there. God has picked me up.
You know, to me, the stuff that he was trying to do, comedy and stuff.
How do you say it? Now this woman suffered for 40 years.
I wasn't I don't know what he was really about. I mean, I watched it, I wouldn't really understand the difference between stuff. Why he was doing comedy, why he was helping life. It was like a mental health thing. They're expressing their feelings.
Solution was given. Make Jesus Christ see you. Make the Lord give solution to your trial. Make that turn the table around. Make your story today change in the name of Jesus. You are not leaving home the same way you walked in.
Look at money, look at this and that. As being done on the streets. You should be good to go. You're ready to like this, you're ready like that. So
testify as
like, wow, you know, you don't understand. You don't understand. So I really couldn't have anybody to understand how I was feeling. I kind of like related. And related to that. But around sort of interesting.
what I cannot do.
And that's
I don't think it was cool.
well, exactly.
I think they understood. But they
If I do what you do, we together, so there is nothing new. But if you begin to do what somebody else do, it upsets the waters. And suddenly, they stand against you. Suddenly, they rise against you. But let me tell you, devil, your reign of terror is over. I am coming for you.
I understood a little bit where he was going through, so I really couldn't tell you, but I really knew because he would understand how it made. He knew he would, but I just don't think he would.
I've been
There's
anointed.
stuff that's going through now. I look at like, like I said, you gotta understand, and that was
Today, the devil like it or not, you are going home free.
good stuff, so they can market on it.
I said that devil is a liar. You are going home free. You can come to my house and steal what is mine and think you get away with it. The devil is a liar. I am coming for you. I want my money back. I want my house back. I want my children back. I want my miracle back. I want my breakthrough back. I want my heart back. What is mine is coming back to me. The devil locked it or not. Yeah.
I would say, I'll be having this kind of power, encourage the athletes to be grow, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's stuff that I said I have to some things off. I started investing. Sometimes I just got quiet. Shut my mouth.
Who am I speaking to? If you have faith to connect to what I'm saying, I have been saying here not to create bubbles in your spirit. I speak as an authorized man of God. Your time of trials and tribulation ends tonight. If the devil asks you who said it, answer, I've looked out. Servant of the living God was sent and anointed for
high.
You will beg no more. You will cry no more. In and out of hospital, no more. You will bury no loved one this year. No more bad news. I said no more bad news. I said no more bad news. In the name of May your faith work for you today. I said, may your faith work for you. May my God honor your faith today. May your faith produce in God today. In the name of Jesus.
There is hope that no and that's the first place people don't they look for it, things gotta happen. You might find this, you might find that. If this might happen, this might happen. And then people start to complain. And then start to go outside, checking it out, go. And we just walk into it. That's why I stay kind of, I stay directing towards the truth. If I can go and hear the truth, then everything will be what it is. Like, what are you doing? It's like, you ain't doing nothing, so I go ahead and give you the truth, bring you back to react, feedback. Back into reality, you know what I'm saying? You need reality. Just how you can go so far. Just lie, you know what I'm saying? That you just start to listen to silly. You know, so it's like doing this and you doing more than a year ago. You don't want that end. One thing you don't want them to be is tragic. One thing to be tragic. Deter people from going across. It's tragic. So tragic is
Well, that's the first thing that comes out to me about it is the idea that I want to do what they disagree on in terms of substance, like unless it's about, I don't know how you can be more hard than like
you might do silly stuff.
I guess is the bottom line, unless the argument is just about how they should be for the midterms, which would then be a more political question. It's kind of hard to imagine that people would get that upset and that over that conversation.
Help others.
Something
you know what I'm saying? When you have tragic stuff, that right there to change the whole dynamics of everything, right? And that's what people will be looking for. You'll be home with your emotion. It's completely faster. They just, you know, get down and then dirty with it, you know, so.
A glorious life. A life of victory is a glorious life.
And the fact that, they're still separated from their family, so not been reunited, who are living in the United States, and they're
wow, right? I still don't know, it's all good, I think, you know? Because I'm trying to make a guy, when he is a Texan, right? Most dangerous, so he has to all, and he's 56, you know, so I'm pretty sure that he would get charged with the whole thing that probably they'll feel more powerful, so more than he was before, because if he was considered to be this and that before,
He's pulling you down. You are all of grace. He's pulling you in shame. He wants to steal your promotion. That's why you have been demoted. Do not accept it. Today arise in authority and take what is yours.
Right before he went and made movies and stuff,
You are just God is about to switch
and I might know, but the mind is somewhere else.
Somebody had a I am anointed. Who am I talking to? Say I am anointed. I can hear you say I am anointed. There is a mama anointed here. There is a granny anointed here. There is a young boy anointed here. There is a man anointed. Who am I talking to? Somebody had a I am anointed.
That's where they try to be square. With their evil, they try to come with their evil in a square, and then you got hiding behind that. It wasn't my fault. Don't know what it is. I may be like, okay, right? When you start school, I think so. I thought you know, this, no one knows something that they never seen, right? Like that. I like to rap, so I was short, we had to be live, out of the trees Tarzan, I was like, I'll look at something like that, you know, I was telling stories about that in the East Coast, and I told stories about stuff like that. Never talked about something like that. But when I talk about
Today we are casting that devil out of our yard. We are saying, devil, your reign of terror is over.
That's why I feel like that. It should be because of when we got to see, groups and stuff. And this before we got to the that side of the camera was all up the middle path. It's a strong house, big 60-bedroom house. With showing some of that food. I'm not really look out. I went folks supposed to be right. No, that they were trying to develop a mind. Like, they brought that, you know what I'm saying? So, that part is back to something that wasn't even high. My dad was pull back all the way, you know, this and that. The disposal was there, so I was raised up seeing videos and little babies. That's how that's hard to have. And yeah, a lot of that stuff was kind of being brothers that were down. They were expressing themselves to change the white folks around because it was just wild because it was different. So when I'm out there outside, I was kind of saw people were being a little careless. Different world, right? So I was just wild. It didn't seem like it was just being manifested. It was just hard to know what I didn't know. I should be based on, right? So, you know, I'll find out how they do this dog things. I was supposed to do things. That's why I did this dog thing. You know, maybe it's just good. So, you know, I already, anybody else can be, I was going to this, but then I would do this thing when, you know, like things were starting to be like, oh, and that's what it is. Like, well, actually, so I was like, stop doing what I was doing, or can't change what I was doing, my review, not realizing how much I would never share the things that I do. Especially when I was doing God the type of things that contradict what I was really about when they end up. I was actually drawn to listen, I had a temper because I was really wrong. They gave me all that. I was brought up in that type of me was like monsters that was so small. Yeah, it's so small. But I was just like in high school, like my type before, you know, for a few years, right? So when I was like 6 feet now, I stayed doing what I was doing. Supposed to be outside, right? So it is what it is, but you can still do it, right? So, and that's why I pretty much, you know, it's weird. Where did you get what you should be doing, right? But never know. There's something that they do. They got that. But it was something we don't decide to do. We should go and say, and it's therefore doing stuff, you know, and stuff that I be doing, stuff that was going to be done, whether, you know, like it or not, it's the most high, right? So, I just see things that came from that. That's you know, when I see it, and my feeling about it, you know, something that came from anything. And I think of this, that, and I probably have. So there's not nothing that was shown. You know, I might just have to pass, so we live. That's the crazy thing about, you know, life, is that, but
the devil is a liar. We are calling fire! In fire! No, sit down now. I said today, may God punish in your life, may God punish the devil.
And then you're like wondering, where's the negative part that is the negative side?
Democrats have failed to energize Latinos in Arizona.
When things are happening,
Could do that for.
you gotta be able to make money at that. That's where we need, so people start to understand that. That's the little thing, that's like trying to be square, is square. You know, on your way, the big stuff, I would see stuff, I hear stuff. I said, let's say that we have 20, 30 years ago, there'd be some serious happening, right? They take it like it's like that's the wonder why I went to the hood, right? And I was talking to these brothers over there. Everything I was saying was that, right? Or anything I was saying, they just over-talking, or they don't want me even talking to listen, you know what I'm saying? But they knew that what I'm saying is what they should be trying to get to. You know, for me, just to market. Because nobody working on that other stuff. I mean, you're working off how to playing that, right? Being that. Being that, you start to understand that, and start working off that. And here I am with this thing like, that's like, y'all don't know market on stuff that I was raised up to be like. They can take it to, don't set the market on that. And you sit there and talk, this, that, this. So I have to change, so I have to tell you what I eat. So,
We have an insider who's going to tell us that we're
and that's what cats, so you're like, you're doing stuff, saying stuff. He's going back to what I told him.
Have been in the works for years. One of several possible sites by Maryland or Virginia. But now,
Ohio. Stuff like that. That's right. Ohio. I gotta go that's where I was from. Where's the that's why I didn't say what I said. If I didn't know that I was able to say what I said, I thought I was saying it seriously. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't thinking about him taking what I said, going back, telling niggas exactly what I said about him, right? It was Ohio Bears, right? I wasn't thinking that he would do that. I was thinking he would go back and tell them what I said. That's exactly what he did. And I'm doing that. Came back, they had me close to the place.
Because we are prophetic, we are apostolic, we are able. It will not work. Somebody had a higher man.
They wanted to stuff like that. So it's almost even not even fair about it. So after, or something, I don't know. I just felt like sometimes I need to balance. So when I balance,
Therefore, you do not know what is waiting for you. It will no longer be business as usual. I am anointed. It's 11 o'clock. I'm waiting for that devil.
Going back to what I said, face to face. You have to think about it. Face to face is every knowledge the world about that type of sometimes in Canada, we're both in the same, they both in the same boat. We make it pretty cool about everything we do. Everything will be negative, you know what I'm saying? They be looked at on as something that's negative. Like the devil, trying to get out. So, that's really think about it on this like how they are. How they became something great on stage. But in person, it's like a little, deep, you know what I'm saying?
You stored here. I did nothing. Before yesterday, you did the same. I saw you with your ugly, smelly, stinking look. And I did nothing. But today, I said today, somebody had a fire. I said today, fire.
That's why you're still fighting now.
Of my God. Therefore, your reign of terror is over. I will not cry anymore. I will not cry anymore. I said your reign of terror is over. You have taken too much. I want my money back. I want my miracle back. I want my restoration back. I want my breakthrough back. I want my family back. I want my children back. I want my ministry back. I want my marriage back.
Time, there's always possible. There's time that you look at, time doesn't feel that rain, it's up there. They have rain. And that's what they did. That little amount of time must have been some serious stuff. Seven. rough time, right? The average people, right? So, understand, I mean, whether it comes from like that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what comes from water, that's what comes, that's what comes from that. You keep going, you keep taking one step, but you have to think about your needs and things like that. You know, that's,
your money, your relationship, your future, you will be selfish or exercise authority and command that power to go, and so shall it be in the name of may I ask you spiritual exercise power. Exercise power. Never to leave your family, to live your life, to live yourself. Command that devil to go. The reign of terror is over. Sickness and disease. Anxious. May God give you the strength. May God give you the strength. May you have victory. May God give you victory today. May God give you victory today. May God cause your enemies to fall before you. No turning back, no turning back, no turning back. Your time has come. Your moment has arrived. The time of your victory. Get it for your rhythm. Take your life. In the name of Jesus. Now lift your hands if you can hear it. Say in the name of Jesus. I take authority over every flying devil, every running devil, every creeping devil, every walking devil, every demon released against my life. I take authority. Devil, your reign of terror in my life is over. I command you now. Back and go. Back and go. In Jesus' name. I destroy today every work of the devil. I destroy today every evil altar of witchcraft, of wizards. In Jesus' name. Every plans of the devil against my life, be destroyed now. In Jesus' name. Whatever is done by the devil against me, against my finances, against my relationship, against my word, against my plans, against my family, against my health, be destroyed now. Be destroyed now. Be destroyed now. In Jesus' name. Every evil power fighting my progress now. Every evil power, the army of the enemy, fighting me now. I call on fire. May the fire of God consume you all. I say fire, fire, fire. May the fire of God consume you in the name of Jesus. Spirit of no progress, the blood of Jesus is against you. Spirit of stagnation, the blood of Jesus is against you. I destroy your maneuvering in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. I am not bad. I am straight. I am not bad. I am straight. I will serve God. I will love God. I will obey God. I will follow Jesus Christ. Devil, you will not stop me. You will not stop me. My body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. Jesus Christ will be glorified in my body, in my soul, in my spirit, in the name of Jesus. I am free. I am free. I am free. In Jesus' name. Now I want you to have the same spirit. Keep on praying. I just want an opportunity to pray for you. Keep on praying. Have a seat and keep on praying. For God loves you. He cares for you. Ramamama said it.
There's so much life. So when you're looking at DJ Envy, you're looking at Cat. Cat, when we're looking at it,
And apologizing for joking about sexual assault on that.
I mean, when
tape. Then telling his confidants he doesn't.
Cat was talking about DJ Envy, he was talking about
Insisting there were
himself.
very fine
He
people
saw a lot of
inside
today
of the deadly
DJ
riot in
Envy
Charlottesville.
himself, the born
One day after
the part.
racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs.
And born in New York, so they have
There's
the
one
same
thing
type
that
of
matters to this race.
intellect, but the right mixture,
And that is
they're not too far from each other.
Heads I win, tails
And then,
you lose. Jim Acosta's
And
with
the,
the president tonight in Montana. He joins us
after
after
the
the president at his favorite place at a campaign rally. He's
other
going
hosts,
all in on immigration. What's the
she's
latest?
That's right. I mean, it was
she's born, she's from Brooklyn, New York, right? That's right. Don't see what she when her birthday is. Not like that. So, she's born in New York. I thought I saw her, she was a Libra. No, she's not Libra, she's January the 3rd. It says she's a Capricorn, January the 3rd. She's from New York too, Falcons. So, I mean, you have to understand that by her being a Capricorn, January 3rd, she's also a full-fledged and then, Charmaine the guy, he's born June 29th, he's a June Cancer. You know, never a July Cancer. So that makes a difference right there. because why the battle is so kind of like silly deep. The many people are born on the cusp, right? Many people are born on the cusp. But me, right? That's why I'm the one who can. It's all about. It's all coming from the. It's always personal cusp that you gotta look at, and I'm not personal cusp. Nobody involved in this whole matter is on the cusp. So it's all because it's all coming from me. I'm the one that's on the cusp. I'm May 1970. So if there was somebody else on the cusp in there, then it'd be more about them. I could give them the power because you can't find nobody in that group between Cat, Grandparents Lee, DJ Andy, Sherman the guy. There's 4 people involved in that whole situation that Kim Lee was talking about. It was him and 3 other people. Sherman the guy, DJ Andy, and Lee. That's what we're talking about. Those are what I'm talking about. But then too, you have to understand, I felt like Kevin Hart. Just Kevin Hart. There's a little battle between them two. It's really 3. It's Trump the guy, he has his crew. He's over that. Then Kevin Hart, he's over that. Kevin Hart is another one involved. He has his own little team. And then Tiffany Haddish blew up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So she might be able to talk too. So I found on her side, but Kevin Hart is. Oh, so he's just like 6. He's another one of those. He's likable. He's kind of likable behind cancer, whereas he's getting more love than all of them. You know, so he's like 6. So I'm still on top. There's that cusp, the unique one out of the group. That's the head of all this. This is me, right? Now Tiffany Haddish. And this should determine everything. Tiffany Haddish. In fact, when her birthday is, you know, Kevin Hart's Philly. He's not on the cusp. He just is straight cancer. And Tiffany Haddish, she should be the one to pretty much seal the deal, right? And it's kind of a type of thing that you read, but she doesn't. She's December 3rd. December 3rd! She's straight Sagittarius, full blood. All these people are full. All these people are working for me, right? Because I'm the only unique one. Everybody's on the cusp. See, I don't know what that now is a sign. See, that's a body. Out of every family member you have, when you find people, you either gonna find one person that's in the cusp, that's among all the other workers who are not in the cusp, or you're gonna find a whole bunch of cusp together working, right? That's how it works. You have to, that's a whole new topic. I met that one time, and I was seeing a whole bunch of. Sometimes we like that, you know. You gotta understand it. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm right? I don't know. I keep talking. What are you talking about? I could read some red books. I could read some other stuff to make it more interesting. I could take each so people go to my red book, point them out, and tell you what it's really about. You want to do that? I go to Italy. I go to all their birthdays. I got the file. And I got the red book right here. I can read each one of the names and tell you what they're really about and why they're doing what you're doing. So I can squash this whole thing and realize it's all about me. It's all about me, right? Well, words are real small. I gotta get me a magnifying glass. My heard that's where you have a lot of those letters so small in that book. So if I need a magnifying glass, something big, one of the big ones. I can go to Marvel. Go to Target somewhere. I know I don't sell them here. I go home and put a steak somewhere. Yeah, but you guys want to know what the book is about. Go ahead and read a book. I read a book to you, everything about you. Everything about you. Yeah, anything else you want to know? You want to know everything. I'm taking all donations. That doesn't make sense, right? You know, right, man. Let's go ahead.
And he continues to stay there. Secretary Nielsen has been dressed down by the president at cabinet meetings, and the chief of staff has stayed in his job. So I don't know that this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but it is unusual for there to be this sort of open public defiance to a chief of staff in the corridor of the West.
Especially to the point they said it was so bad that aides thought that one of them might resign. That's a big fight right there.
Yeah. Although we'll see what happens.
So is this?
I would take Kelly if it devolved into a fight. I would take Kelly in that fight. We'll see.
So listen, I got to ask you because remember Olivia Newsy was in the West Wing last week, and she said they put on this big display about how great they got along and how wonderful it was. I'm wondering if this is just another example that sort of flies in the face of Trump saying that his White House is a well-oiled machine. Remember, he's trying to get that point to Olivia Newsy?
Him. He likes conflict, he foments conflict, he brings people in with conflicting views, and it hasn't been harmonious from the beginning, and it's not harmonious now. Those who are close to him argue that, his methods are unconventional, but he gets results anyway, and that's what matters. But at the end of the day, you can pay a price if there's incoherence in a White House. There are going to be situations that arise that require some level of coordination and cooperation, and if people are at loggerheads with each other and issuing conflicting kinds of orders and directives, you're going to run into
I hope you saw the president's rally because they discussed the president. We're back now with Mr. David Ynsdks. The president was building up his base in Montana tonight, and he talked a whole lot about immigration. This new caravan coming from Central America. He said this, watch.
Because I have created such an incredible economy. I have created so many jobs. I've made this country with you so great that everybody wants to come in. So they're all pouring in for trying to. So, with the worst laws in the world, we're doing a hell of a job.
Oh my gosh. They're coming in because of his great economy. That is some really great spin.
Well, look, I think the economy, the American economy has been a lure for people coming here, along with what's going on back in their countries and the violence that they're fleeing in their own countries and the deprivation they're fleeing in their own countries. The fact of the matter is, though, we've created a lot of jobs in the last couple of years, but fewer jobs than in the 2 years previous under the Obama administration. So that doesn't explain everything. The thing is that they obviously don't have an answer for this, and that's why there was this fight outside the Oval Office. He doesn't really have a policy for it, and I'm not sure he, at this moment, despite all the reporting, I think he likes having the issue. He thinks immigration is a provocative issue for his base. He's totally focused on winning these midterm elections. So, this sort of does have immigration right now, I think, serves his purposes. This is great for his base.
I've got to bring this up to you, David. The president.
the country, they are dealers before, they never give the electricity, they never fix the road, and they are people voting for them again. Because guys, some people say, these
Here's the
people
assault
are not voting
president.
them.
Watch this.
They are so much vote does not count.
Make your decision about how to make something.
And vote does not count.
Yeah, but you're not going to be kind of
What is the political
You last got to do the same damn thing.
You just
very hard to remove them. So stop wasting your time sending me messages to support I want to do that.
This is in part of the aftermath of the murder of Jamal
Here in the
world where they often face far greater threats. He doesn't understand the world is watching because he's not reading the moment here, maybe reading the room there, but he's not reading the world, how the world is reacting.
He's reading his base. That room, in his view, reflects his base. He thinks his base has bought into his sort of rhetoric about the media and appreciates strength. In his estimation, that represents strength. He's focused on one thing. He's focused on ginning up the base for the midterm elections, and he thinks that this helps him. They gave him affirmation for that in his room. Here's the irony of it. A lot of his speech was devoted to talking about the Democratic mob. And then he exalts a physical attack in a kind of Roman Colosseum environment. So, the incongruity of it is kind of mind-boggling. But he is about one thing between now and November 6th, doing everything he possibly can to bring out his base. He's concerned about turnout and wants to turn it up. And he doesn't care what the world thinks. He doesn't care what you or I think. All he cares about is getting those numbers up, and do whatever he needs to do that.
Thank you very much. So somebody said in that Jared Kushner is urging the president not to be pressured into a quick decision over what happened to Jamal Khashoggi. But is Kushner's strategy the one the president should really be following? That it certainly looks like he's dead. But he says he's still waiting for the results of the investigations by Turkey and Saudi Arabia. We're bringing out Frank Moody and Kirsten Powers. Good evening to both of you. So Frank, here's President Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo earlier today.
I told President Trump this morning that we want to give him a few more days to complete that so that we too have complete understanding of the facts around that.
Waiting for some investigations and waiting for the results, and we'll have them very soon, and I think we'll be making a statement, a very strong statement, but we're waiting for the results.
So he has proceeded tonight that Khashoggi is dead, but still no action for 2 weeks now. So what is he really doing?
Well, he's calling this an investigation, right? That's sort of laughable. This is an investigation being done by the people who we know are responsible for this, about what they did. And I think it's pretty clear if you follow this the last couple of days, and if you listen carefully to what Mike Pompeo was saying, this isn't an investigation. This is an opportunity for someone to create a narrative that takes the blame off the crown prince, that comes up with some reform person, and that the U.S. likes because it may be has to Saudi Arabia. Needs a great deal
With his statement there too, so Frank was very concerned about the situation. A number of lawmakers as well as very symbolic outbreak to talk in America as the champion
it's hard for people. I should say it should be hard for people. It's not. There are people who are acting like all of a sudden they've just discovered that Saudi Arabia, has a horrible human rights position.
Yeah, I've got to ask about this, though, because I want to talk. Got to ask about these 11 Democratic senators sending a letter to the president demanding that he disclose information about his business ties with Saudi Arabia. That is a problem with his lack of transparency when it comes to his financial interests, right, Kirsten?
Yes.
Very simply, yes, right? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, look, I think that there's, I think one of the main problems we're having with the Saudi Arabia situation is that Jared has become so invested in this, and so the only reason
reportedly reminding the president and the people who are trying to deal with this that we deal with some shady characters and people who have human rights abuses all over the world. But go on.
right, and that this will blow over, but the only reason that he would be so interested in this is because there are financial benefits to his family. That is what motivates everything that they do, and I think that there should be, the highest suspicion around this.
So same question to you, but just Jared has zero foreign policy experience. Had before entering the White House. Should he be the person that's in his presidency or giving him the advice, some of which I just mentioned in what Kirsten just mentioned?
Absolutely not. I mean, most of the things that Jared Kushner has been tasked with in this administration, or has tasked himself to do, are things he has no experience with. He's got a bigger ego than he has a resume. And part of what I think people find disturbing, what I find disturbing here, is the closeness of the relationship that he formed with the Crown Prince, and whether that's kind of clouding everybody's judgment right now, whether what he's trying to do is not only save perhaps business interests and financial interests, but whether he's trying to kind of preserve his ego and salvage his reputation here, because a lot of people are rightly looking at the enthusiasm he showed for the Saudi Arabian kingdom and for the Crown Prince and saying, where did that come from and did it go too far and why was he so deep in?
Let me just, this is what you write in your column. You say, what does he have to say about the Saudis and Khashoggi? Nothing. He has his usual moral laryngitis. He's integral when there's the hope of credit, invisible when there is the certainty of blame.
100%. Ever since this administration began, we get this kind of, these orchestrated whispers from the people who represent, sometimes publicists, but sometimes just allies, Jared and Ivanka, telling us when they want to, how integral they are and what a positive influence they are. Then something like this happens, and what do you hear from the Jared allies? What do you hear from Jared himself? You hear absolutely nothing. Suddenly they vacate the situation when it doesn't make them look good, and it offends me.
Kirsten, the president keeps saying that Khashoggi was an American, that it didn't happen on American soil. Do you think he's trying to take the focus off the horror of what the Saudis allegedly did?
Yeah, they seem to be looking for a way to protect the Saudis from this, and I think it is, again, because Jared is so invested in, and because the president is so focused on this arms deal that we have with them, which actually started in the Obama administration, but it's still a lot of money, and so I think he is looking for ways around this, and also because honestly I don't think he really cares that much about what happened or about any kind of human rights abuses, and I certainly don't think he cares very much about a journalist being killed, to be honest with you. So I think he is looking for a way to try to make it okay, but how would that make it any better? I don't understand. I guess in his world, the fact that you're just a resident and not a citizen somehow has some bearing on something, but I don't see it.
Kirsten, Frank, don't go anywhere. I want both of you to stay with me. Just a week after resigning from her job as UN ambassador, Nikki Haley is back in the spotlight, and she's got jokes.
I learned that the UN has 193 member nations, 180 which are mad at us on any given day. And the most important thing I learned is that with all of our differences, there is still one thing that unites.
Comedian. Last week, Nikki Haley was in the Oval Office announcing her resignation as America's ambassador to the UN. On tonight, she cracked jokes at the Al Smith Dinner, an annual charity event right here in New York City featuring prominent politicians.
Everyone in Washington called me with advice about this speech. They all said the same thing. Do not, under any circumstances, make any jokes about the president. So good night, everybody.
Back with me, Frank Bruni and Kirsten Power. So Kirsten, for the most part, Haley avoided taking digs at the president, making digs at the president, but she did take a joke that took the Democrats on as well as her boss. Watch this.
2 years ago, President Trump was here and he made some waves with his remarks. Apparently no one here could have predicted that. So last year you went with Paul Ryan, who's a Boy Scout, and that's fine, but a little boring. So this year you wanted to spice things up again, right? I get it. You wanted an Indian woman, but Elizabeth Warren failed her DNA test. Actually, when the president found out that I was Indian American, he asked me if I was from the same tribe as Elizabeth Warren.
Now, she was funny. Trump wasn't funny when he went. I don't remember if Ryan was funny. Was he funny? I don't remember. But what are your thoughts, Kirsten?
Yeah, I mean, she was funny. I don't think, she's not a stand-up comedian. I think, as you noted earlier, she looks stunning, and you are allowed to say that, Dawn. You don't have to worry about that. I think she's obviously very, very charismatic. You can tell me anytime. Yeah, and I think she was fine.
Yeah, fine. All right. Do you think there's an expiration date on jokes about Warren's DNA test? Do you think we're going to hear Republicans cracking jokes about that for a while now?
I don't think it'll go on for months, but it has a couple more weeks in it. What I thought was so interesting about that, though, was what you said. She took swipes both at Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
I think that's very considered. Nikki Haley has shown herself to be one of the smoothest, deftest political operators that I've seen in a long time, and she's been performing one of the most fascinating balancing acts in politics for the last 2 years, and I think that act continued. It was a comedy act, it was also a balancing act.
Yeah. I want to play another joke that Haley sounds like she's going to joke about the president, but then it takes another turn. Watch this.
The president got really mad at Bob Woodward's book. Really mad. The book compared him to a fifth grader. A lot of Democrats seized on that until they realized they got beat by a fifth grader.
So Kirsten, she walks right up to the line, right, but veers away. Is she worried about a headline that might annoy the president?
Yeah. No, I mean, that was funny. And I think she has been somebody who's been able to really navigate working with Donald Trump. And, a lot of people, the sort of everything he touches dies doesn't really apply to her, right? She's been able to get in and out of this administration untarnished, and I would even say, in a better position than she was probably when she went in, at least with experience that she didn't have, which has not been the case for a lot of people who have come out of this administration scathed.
Yeah. You mentioned that you think she's one of the deftest political players that you've seen. What do you think about her decision to avoid taking on the president directly, though, Frank?
It continues this mission. She does not want to be welded to his side, but she realizes the last thing in the world she wants is to be attacked on Twitter by Donald Trump to have him going after her, because when Donald Trump decides to go after you, he goes after you all guns blazing. She's deft. She left this administration after 2 years because she realized she needed these 2 years to punch the foreign policy hole in her ticket, right? To have a better resume for whatever comes next. But every month you stay in the Donald Trump administration is another month when something terrible can happen. It's another month when your reputation can end up in tatters. So I think she saw the 2-year mark coming and she said, I've done enough time to pad my resume and I can get out before anything horrible happens to me.
Yeah, I just kept thinking it was a bad joke. Her new name is Most Deaf.
Most deaf?
Most deaf.
I'm putting a T on the end.
Not most deaf, but most deft. So I've got to ask you, so after all these jokes about that Ambassador Haley made, she made a serious point about how Americans need to come together. Here it is.
In the last 2 years, I've seen true evil. We have some serious political differences here at home. But our opponents are not evil. They're just our opponents. We are blessed with a political system that allows us to resolve our differences peacefully. In the end, we must recognize that we are all Americans, and we are stronger and healthier when we are united.
Well, What do you think? Because I'm wondering if that advice is for the president, Kirsten, because he's the one who's called Democrats evil.
Yeah, I don't know. This struck me as sort of the typical political pablum. Okay, so maybe there are very few people who are actually pure evil, but there's actually quite a bit of evil that's happening in this country right now, in my opinion. I mean, I think racism is evil. I think misogyny is evil, and I'm seeing a lot of that in this country, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. And to sort of say, oh, because we can resolve our differences without violence, that somehow our differences aren't serious and profound and go well beyond politics. I think it's more about morality and what you think is decent. I just don't think it's an accurate, I think it might have been accurate at another time in our history. I don't think it's accurate right now.
Last word, Frank.
I think Nikki Haley was talking about the tone of so much of our political debate. And in that sense, I appreciate what she said. I think it was meant for the president, but he would have to hear really subtly to hear that. That's not the way he hears.
Thank you both. I appreciate your time. Fareed Zakaria is going to join me next. This is CNN Tonight. I'm Don Lemon. Pressure building as more and more evidence points to the Saudis' involvement in what happened in the United States president. This is a foreign policy crisis that can't be solved. Here's how the president was
Halloween time is back with spectacular experiences in Disneyland and Disney California Adventure Parks.
Consequences the Saudis would face if they're proven complicit.
Well, it'll have to be very severe. I mean, it's bad stuff. But we'll see what happens, okay?
We'll see what happens. No decisive statement of condemnation. Nothing about the mounting pile of gruesome and terrible evidence. The only person who seems willing to accept the Saudi government's denial in the face of international outrage is President Trump. And when there is a failure of leadership, there's only one place to look.
Problems start from the top and have to get solved from the top, and the president's the leader, and he's got to get everybody in a room, and he's got to lead.
America First may play well with some at home, but a case like this calls for more. It calls for decisive presidential leadership. Lots to discuss. Fareed Zakaria is here. Fareed, thank you very much. So it looks like he's saying it looks like Jamal Khashoggi is dead, but he's saying, wait, and let's see what comes out of the Saudi investigation. Is he leading from behind? What kind of investigation is this? What kind of leadership is this?
Well, the whole thing is a little puzzling because the Saudis are, as somebody pointed out, investigating themselves, investigating actions that they took. So it's not entirely clear what you would investigate. It all happened within the Saudi consulate on authority, by Saudi government employees. It's enough of them that this could be pretty quickly figured out. I think that the mistake the president is making is he seems to be colluding with the Saudis to come up with a cover-up. That's not the role for the United States. That's not the role for the president or the administration. The Saudis should do what they need to do. Let them figure out what they need to do. They're grown-ups. And the United States should decide how it will then respond. But there are these many reports that the Trump administration and the Saudi government are jointly trying to come up with a plausible story. This is not the role of the United States government to cover up some foreign government's misdeeds.
The reason I said the leading from behind, remember the conservatives, it used to enrage them. They would say, well, this president is not being strong and decisive enough, talking about President Obama. He's leading from behind. It seems like leading from behind. Where is the outrage? What happened with that criticism?
Well, on this, if you broaden this out, this is a signal area where the United States under Donald Trump has really been I think leading from behind is an exaggeration. I think the better way to put it might be abdicating leadership, has been AWOL. If you look at the climate for journalists, if you look at the climate for political opposition, if you look at the climate for all those hallmarks of liberal democracy around the world, they're in bad shape around the world. And one reason is that the country that was usually at the forefront of protecting them, of talking about them, calling governments out, is AWOL. Under the Trump administration, you really have had a very relaxed attitude toward whether it's Duterte in the Philippines doing extrajudicial killings by the dozens, whether it was Erdogan in Turkey jailing people, whether it was Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia locking up businessmen. Whatever it was, the Trump administration simply abdicated the role that the United States has played for decades, which is to call these things out, to call them to attention, put them on the international agenda. As a result, this is one of the most dangerous times in the world to be in history, to be a journalist, to be a member of political opposition, to in any way voice any kind of opposition. So for people who think that those things don't matter, they do matter. When Donald Trump calls the press the enemy of the people, and journalists scum, or whatever it is he's called them, Duterte in the Philippines is listening. Other dictators are listening, and it's not implausible that the Saudis heard that and thought, no one's going to care. After all, these people are the enemies of the people.
What does this do to our moral authority around the world, since you said what you just said?
Well, think about it this way. When President Trump wants to make a tough case against a country like Iran,
Yes.
like Venezuela, he always uses the moral authority. He talks about how Venezuela is repressive, how Iran arrests dissidents. Well, you can only have that moral authority if you call it out universally, if you don't selectively use it against the one or two countries that you have some foreign policy beef with. And that's where I think the president doesn't seem to realize that he can't all of a sudden invent it when he wants it and put it aside when he doesn't want it. These values are universal.
Yeah, you said that the president it seems like he was essentially colluding with the Saudis to come up with some sort of explanation.
But that is the reporting one gets, that they're going back and forth to figure it out.
Let me ask you about the New York Times. They're reporting that Saudi rulers are considering blaming a top general with close ties to the crown prince. Nothing happens without Mohammed bin Salman knowing. And so is blaming a general, would that be enough? Is that plausible, you think?
Look, I think the Saudis should come up with whatever investigation they want, and I think we shouldn't be, as I say, colluding. Let's hear what they have to say. Let's let them lay out the evidence that suggests that the buck stops where it does. Saudi Arabia is an absolute monarchy. It is a highly centralized system. The people involved were, in some cases, on the personal guards of Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince. Others were members of the Royal Guard. One of the people who went there was the head of the Saudi Council of Forensics,
Right.
a doctor who actually has published an article called Mobile Autopsies.
When you said like 2 hours or less or something, one of them said that there was someone there reportedly who came up with this thing about dismembering a body and getting rid of it within 2 hours or something.
I read that as well. It hasn't been confirmed, but my point is, it's very difficult to imagine that this was not centrally directed.
Right.
Secondly, this will come out. There are too many people involved. The way I think that the United States should think about this is, President Trump, if you were interested in history, should get a briefing from some of the people who were involved in the George H.W. Bush administration when the Chinese dealt with Tiananmen Square. You remember, it was a brutal crackdown of pro-democracy protests in China. What President Bush did was he immediately announced sanctions against China. He condemned them, he criticized them, he immediately announced sanctions against China. But then, a little bit later, he sent his national security advisor to Beijing and said, look, we want to maintain a strategic relationship. You're too big a country for us to isolate. You got to understand, you guys did something that was unconscionable, but that this is not the end of the relationship. That's leading. That's taking the moral high ground, condemning the offense. And President Bush got a lot of heat for sending his national security advisor. But I think that balanced approach makes some sense. Here, as it seems to me, we're behaving like the PR agency for the Saudi government. We don't need to do that. Let them come up with their story. We have to do what we think is in the interest of the United States.
I'm wondering how much of this, because sources are telling CNN that Jared Kushner is advising the president, saying basically don't act too fast, that, with there are wider ramifications and repercussions that could happen in the region. What Saudi's neighbors, what are they thinking about this? How do they see all of this?
Everybody watches what Washington is doing. I mean, this is a region of followers, not leaders. I think that if the United States took a firm stand, and as I say, you do not have to be unbalanced about this. You can recognize Saudi Arabia is the central banker of oil for the world. There's a long security relationship with the United States, but you have to make clear that it is not all right to lure somebody, an American resident, into your consulate and chop him up into pieces. That is simply not, civilized behavior in 2018, particularly not for a government that wants to see itself as reformist. I think the president has gotten himself into a trap where he views foreign policy almost entirely through the prism of personalities. He likes Mohammed bin Salman. He doesn't like Angela Merkel. He doesn't like Justin Trudeau. He likes Kim Jong-un. This is, frankly, foreign policy is not psychotherapy. The United States has deep, complicated interests in these parts of the world. Germany is one of the most important allies the United States has, vital to the stability of the Western Europe. It doesn't matter what you think of Angela Merkel. You have to find a way to make that relationship work. Kim Jong-un presides over probably the most repressive regime in the world right now, maybe one of the most repressive in history. The fact that you have good energy with him does not change that reality. This is where I feel as though the personal likes and dislikes of the president are shaping the long-term grand strategy of the United States in crucial parts of the world. And these are not real estate deals. This is the foreign policy of the most important country in the world.
Foreign policy is not psychotherapy. That is indeed a good assessment. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Fareed Zakaria, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS, seen right here on CNN. I just released political ad making claims so outrageous and racist. The candidate it aims to support swiftly is disavowing it, disavowed it. Well, I hesitate to give oxygen to something like this. I think it shows just how toxic our political climate is becoming. So the midterms are just 19 days away and counting, and I thought politics in this country couldn't get any uglier.